Do you think somewhere out there in the cosmos, in a strange, perverse way, that karma came back and bit Urban Meyer in the ass last night in Columbus? Oklahoma coming into the shoe and absolutely throttling the Buckeyes? Because it was earlier this week that Urban Meyer decided to pick up the flag for all those coaches out there that he cares so much about. Because, of course, when Tom Herman made that pixie dust comment, which really wasn't belittling his players. He was just stating a simple fact after his Longhorns in their debut gave up 178 points to Maryland last week, saying that, you know, if you thought that they were going to come in there, the new regime with Herman and his staff, and sprinkle pixie dust over the program and change things instantly overnight, it just wasn't going to be that easy. But, of course, Urban Meyer took offense about it all, thinking that Herman was just suddenly singling out all the players that he inherited from Charlie Strong, and he had to come out and criticize Herman and all coaches that wanted to apparently single out the players that they inherited from the previous regimes. Maybe Meyer should have been worrying more about his own defense last night, because Oklahoma absolutely put them to task, and even though the Sooners didn't have all their playmakers, the Buckeyes couldn't stop them at home. Now, of course, it was a big revenge game for the Sooners, who had their own asses handed to them in Norman last year, but who had any idea that Oklahoma, a 7.5-point underdog, would take care of business so easily last night? Oh, do you think Harbaugh is just waiting for his Wolverines to play the Buckeyes later this season? And meanwhile, I don't know, maybe Tom Herman has just a little smile. But the fact is, listen, if you saw that Texas program last year, didn't Charlie Strong fire his defensive coordinator early last season? Didn't Charlie Strong, a noted defensive coordinator in college football, take over the program? And what happened? Texas couldn't stop anybody. And this is a Texas Longhorns program, the truth be told, didn't have a lot of talent to begin with. So Tom Herman's team, big deal. They beat San Jose State yesterday. They're going to give up a lot of points as the season continues. This Ohio State program, on the other hand, hey, it's a good thing it was a non-conference game yesterday. They've got to get their act together. That was as demoralizing of a loss as you can possibly have. Now, it wasn't a conference loss, but still, it's got to be a definite loss that shakes up that program. As for Oklahoma, that is one of those legacy wins for Lincoln Riley, taking over for Bob Stoops. Of course, you lose to Texas later this year, and they'll forget about that legacy win pretty damn fast. But totally different situation. Tom Herman taking over a Texas program, Lincoln Riley taking over an Oklahoma program. When Stoops walks away, he turns over the keys to a top 5 program in the country. He's inheriting talent. Riley, of course, I'm talking about when I'm referring to he. But, of course, in Norman land, they're saying Stoops wouldn't have won this game. No way. Big game Bob Stoops, he would have failed in this game. And there it goes. Let's talk a little about the NFL. As far as my complimentary plays yesterday, took a split with them. I told you the biggest blowout on the board would absolutely be Kansas State, and they delivered with ease. I told you that I thought that the Oregon-Nebraska game would go skyrocketing over the total, and they certainly did. I was on the wrong side of that Washington State game. I was the wrong side of the Oregon game. I thought Oregon would pull off the cover against Nebraska, but they did not, unfortunately. So a 2-2 split with the complimentary plays. Hey, and cashed in with Oklahoma State on Friday night. So not a bad week with the complimentary plays. And plus, just want to check, you got to love the live video reports. I just want to check one other game that I had talk to you about. Oh, I also said that I thought Kansas was a fraud. I thought that was the biggest trap game on the board, that Kansas, a team that had won its opener against the Little Sisters of the Poor team, that had won 2 straight games in Lawrence, not to be so or get caught in the trap game that the Jayhawks were actually a 5-point favorite at home against Central Michigan, a team that needed triple overtime to beat Rhode Island in its home opener. And Central Michigan was a 5.5-point underdog. What happened? Central Michigan goes into Lawrence and wins that game 45-27. That was the ultimate trap game. So let's talk about today's complimentary plays. The first play I'm going to give you is Pittsburgh. Minus the 9 to 10 points, depending on where you're booking that one, at Cleveland. Listen, last time the Steelers went into Cleveland, they took on a rookie quarterback. It was November 20th last year, and they won that game 24-9. Gee, they're going into Cleveland today. They're going to be taking on a rookie quarterback. Should we expect anything different from a Browns team that was 1-7 against the spread as a home dog a year ago? I don't think so. Le'Veon Bell was rested because he held out the entire preseason. Last year in the game of Cleveland, he ran the ball 28 times for 146 yards. I mean, what a season Bell had a year ago. He only played 12 games, ran for 1,268 yards, had 75 catches just in 12 games. You got Roethlisberger that, as of today, is healthy. And, with Ben, if he's healthy, you ride him. When he's banged up, probably 3 games, 2 games from now, which he's inevitably going to be, well, then you always have to worry. But you've got Antonio Brown coming off a 106 catch season, a deep receiver corps for the Steelers. It's only better now that Martavis Bryant is back after the year-long suspension. You got James Conner, who they drafted to give Bell a little bit of a blow. Why not lay the points with the Steelers? I mean, listen. Early in the NFL season, in week number 1, you generally lean toward the favorites because the prices are always undervalued, because the odds makers don't have any clue what to expect from these teams, because the NFL preseason is absolutely worthless. Week number 2, you generally gravitate toward the dogs, okay? Because then the odds makers are catching up and the prices are more fair. They're more evenly weighted. Week number 1, the favorites are generally too cheap. I say lay the points with Pittsburgh in this particular contest. I think the Houston Texans are cheap at home, but I don't like them as much as the Steelers because, listen, when you get starting Tom Savage at quarterback, who's basically a placeholder till Deshaun Watson takes over, still, can you really find much reason to support a Jaguars team quarterback like Blake Bortles, who's 0-6 straight up, 2-4 against the spread when quarterbacking against this Texans defense that was number 1 ranked overall in the NFL a year ago with a per game yield of 20.5 points a game and 301 yards? No. I mean, it's Blake Bortles. He won the job by default because they didn't want to give it to Chad Henne. I mean, that's the bottom line. The Jaguars have lost 9 consecutive openers straight up. They've only covered 2 of those 9. They're 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 road openers, getting outscored by an average of 17 points a game in those road openers. Houston, meanwhile, is on a 9-2-1 spread run and home as a home favorite. They've covered 8 of their last 11 in division play, and they're healthy again, meaning J.J. Watt's healthy. Listen, they're going to rely on their ground game. They're not going to ask Savage to win the game by himself. And I think 5 points is a fair price to win for a team that should, or to cover for a team that should win by a touchdown or more. So I'm going to go with Houston as your second complimentary play. On the late card, I've got to lay the points with the Green Bay Packers. This is a team that late last season finally started to open things up offensively. Started to taking more chances. And I like the Packers, who are on an 8-1-1 ATS run in their last 10 home openers. The home team in the Seattle-Green Bay series in regular season play, the home team has reeled off 5 straight covers. Again, I just like the Packers in this game. I do not think the Seattle defense is as good as it has been in previous years. We saw some chinks in the armor developing last season. I think the Packers are a little more balanced team with a little bit of a running game now. And I just think that late last season, you saw Mike McCarthy finally start to take the reins off the offense, starting to open up the playbook once more, instead of just relying on, hey, Aaron Rodgers, go out and make something happen. And I think at 3 points, again, I'm buying down the half point if this line is anywhere between 3 and 4. And I like Green Bay. But in order of the ranking of the free plays, I like Pittsburgh number 1, Houston number 2, Green Bay number 3. And those are your 3 complimentary plays. The other games I looked at today, I wouldn't be surprised if Oakland and Tennessee went over the posted price of 50.5. After all, the Raiders, their defense hasn't gotten that much better from a year ago, but I do expect them to put points on the board, as I do for the Titans as well. And if you look at the trends in these 2 teams, the Raiders are on a 27-13-1 overall in their last 41 games. The Titans have gone over in 7 of their last 10 at home with a push along the way. So I do lean a little toward the over in that particular game. It seems to be a lot of betting backers there for the 49ers. I'm sorry. I know they improved their defense. You got Brian Hoyer at quarterback. You can't get me to buy into that. I'd rather back the Panthers, who I think are not going to be as good as they were 2 years ago, but they're not going to be as bad as they are last year. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to make that offense so much more dynamic with Cam Newton. So I'd probably be willing to lay the 4.5 points with Carolina. I'm just talking about these games because these are other games that I handicap. The Sunday night game, I think, is just a damn tough game to figure out a side because that number of 4 points is right there, right where it should be. When you think about what happened with these two games last year in the season opener, which the Giants won. Remember, it was the debut for both Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. And Elliott had a season-low 51 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. And the Cowboys had repeated failures in the red zone and had to settle for field goals. Then they won every single game until they met the Giants again. And in that one, again, the Giants defense stymied Dak Prescott, who had 20 incompletions in both games against that big blue defense last year, and 2 of his 4 interceptions on the season came against the Giants. Des Bryant, totally ineffective in 2 games against the Giants last year. He was targeted 14 times in the 2 games, only had 2 receptions for a total of 18 yards. Cowboys only scored 26 points in those 2 games against the Giants, who went out this season. They got Brandon Marshall. Now, will Odell Beckham Jr. play tonight? I got to think that he's going to definitely suit up and give it his best shot and play tonight. But the Giants still have the same problem. You know, a ground game that's spotty, an offensive line that afforded Eli Manning very little protection. He was sacked 5 times against the Cowboys last year. The Cowboys secondary, though, is not nearly as strong as it was last year. Starting a couple of rookies, a cast off from the Eagles, that's going to be problematic, especially with Beckham Jr. and now Brandon Marshall, okay? So, you know, you're looking at a game that's probably going to be right there around 3 or 4 points. In my heart, I say the Cowboys are the play. But I think this is one of those games that you just stay away from. You watch it as a fan, but you just don't bet it, especially when you consider the Giants have covered 5 straight with Eli Manning against the Cowboys. So, again, handicap these games. I figured I'd give you my opinion on it anyway. Again, complimentary plays in order. Steelers, Houston Texans, and then your last play would be the Green Bay Packers. And that'll do it, and talk to you again on Monday.